Are universal audio plugins worth the cost? They're pretty expensive plugins, and there's basically an entry fee by having to buy either an audio interface or some kind of UAD satellite. And so today's question is it worth it to buy universal audio plugins? Now, before we get into it, could you guys please hit the like button and give me a subscribe? I make videos like this every week, so here we go. Number one, they're pretty close to the hardware. Like, you can get an 1176 or an LA2A or any access to anything like that. They're about 70 to 80% of what the actual hardware is. Now, when I first started out, I started spending thousands upon thousands of dollars buying all of this outboard gear that if you go to a place like Gear Sluts, they're going to tell you you need all this stuff or that it's some kind of magical device. And that knowledge led me to the Blackbird Academy in Nashville, where I got to use things like a Fairchild, which is like a $30,000 compressor. I got to use all of the top stuff. And I had a bunch of gear as well. And what I found out really is the plugins are pretty close. They're close enough where I don't need to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars on hardware. So the next thing is with the UAD audio interfaces, you can record with these plugins in real time. So you can use a model of an LA2A or 1176 or Neve preamps. I mean, they just come with this stuff that is automatically probably better than your stock preamps and everything like that. And so you can get right to work with those. You don't need to buy like a $500 preamp or a $1,000 compressor or a distressor like I have. You can just use the plugins and record with them in real time. So that's pretty cool. It saves you from having to buy outboard gear. The next thing is the UAD plugins come with free updates. Whenever you download their latest version of the software, it's free. And if you update your OS or your computer, or any of that stuff, you're not going to have to pay for an update there. The only time you're going to have to pay for an update is when they release like a new 1176, and you don't have to buy that. It's just a new version of that plugin. And if you want to, you're going to have to pay for it. But as far as like the plugins you buy and own, they're yours. So you can just go with that. So it also comes with a free digital audio workstation, Luna, and I've heard there's still some quirks they're working out with it, but overall it's a free digital audio workstation, so you can't really beat that. That way you don't have to buy like Pro Tools or Cubase or anything like that. You can always just start there, and I'm sure the platform will improve as it gets older. So the downside of Universal Audio is that it's kind of like the country club of plugins, and what I mean by that is there's an initiation fee. You have to buy some piece of hardware like the satellite or a UAD interface like the Apollo or the Aero, and that's kind of just your entry fee, which it's already expensive. That stuff goes from like $500 up to like $3,000. I mean, there's not really a cap for it. So the other part is these plugins are expensive. They do have sales twice a year in December and in June, and a lot of those plugins are like almost half off, or they have bundles that you can buy, and that's how I've acquired a lot of these plugins. And the other part of this is that especially the new plugins are very heavy on the DSP that comes with your device. Now that's what you're buying when you buy a universal audio device, is basically processing for these plugins. They're separate from your computer, but the problem is depending on what you get, that can run out very easily. And a lot of the new plugins are very DSP heavy. And so you only have so much. It can become a pretty expensive proposition, but if you just need a couple of plugins to track your vocals with, so you have some compression and maybe a decent preamp, then this is a good solution outside of getting hardware, which is, you know, thousands upon thousands of dollars. I mean, you're really going to spend a lot of money and go down a very deep rabbit hole when you start getting into outboard gear. And you know what? A lot of people, if you're recording other people's bands, they don't really care. I mean, like, I used to think I could buy a piece of gear and it's going to give me some kind of edge. Like, they're going to think, oh, I've got a TG1 or I've got a distressor or I've got all these preamps and all this stuff. I mean, really what they care about is the product at the end of the day. And having all this extra gear, it's not really going to matter. You can just use this stuff and make great music. So with that said, that's gonna do it for today. One thing, bonus tip, one thing I'll say is that my favorite UAD plugins are the Fatso. I also like the API 2500, which it is much closer to the actual hardware than the Waves version of that. And then the other question, you know, I get a lot is Waves or Universal Audio plugins. And with UAD, if you want the model of the hardware, I would go with UAD. They make a much closer version. They do that very well. It is expensive. With Waves, though, they do make new innovative plugins for cheap, and they do a really good job in that space. So UAD, they model the hardware very well. Waves, they come up with new inventive things, plugins that are very useful. There's Universal Audio plugins that I use on every mix, and there are Waves plugins that I've used on every mix for the last 10 years. So they're both good. The only thing with Waves is they do have an update fee. If you update your OS or computer, it's probably going to be about $240 at the most. Sometimes it can be cheaper, but if you have a lot of Waves plugins, you're going to have to pay for it when you update. So that's that. Universal Audio, no update fee there. So if you got any value out of this video, please hit the like and subscribe. If you have any questions about either Waves, UAD, or Pro Tools, any of that stuff, please just leave a comment below. I have a couple of checklists at my website at homestudiorescue.com. I have 6 steps to get you ready to record, and then I have a home studio buyer's guide there as well. You can download all that for free. And I thank you guys so much if you made it this far, and I'll catch you on the next one.